Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be discussing my top movies of 2021. I'm going to be doing a top 5 with a couple honorable mentions. So theaters around here started opening up kind of toward the spring or in the spring of last year. And I went to a bunch of movies. Going to be again discussing my top movies of last year. So my first honorable mention here is Ghostbusters Afterlife. I didn't have a whole lot of expectations going into this movie. They were pretty low overall. Went in to see it. Didn't see it opening weekend. I think I saw it like a week later, and really enjoyed it. Felt like it was definitely kind of like an homage to the original with a new cast. Some of the casting was really good. One cast member I didn't particularly care for Finn Wolfhard's character. It felt like he was just kind of there. His character could have probably been not even included in the movie or have somebody else play that character. But it also, it didn't feel like that character really contributed all that much to the movie. So I guess you could have just, cut that character entirely. I think he was there, to kind of like fill out their crew because it would at that point it would have been, I think like maybe like two characters that were, knowing what was going on. So like to give a little bit of context, it's in the trailers. Basically, the Ghostbusters are kind of broken up. And I believe Egon had gone out to this town in the Midwest to do some research or track something down. And then that character, because played by Harold Ramis in the originals, that character actually passes away the actor passed away several years ago, I think in 2014. So the character passes away in this movie, leaves this farmhouse to, I believe, his daughter and grandchildren, and they go there, and then the children discover the Ecto-1, and then there's something going on in town related to ghosts and all that. But it was very kind of like a nostalgic kind of movie, but it definitely had its moments. It was a lot of fun. Again, I didn't have very high expectations for it, and again, went in with low expectations and was very surprised with the film. So overall, I thought it was really good. There are two post-credit scenes, like one kind of early on in the credits and one at the very end of the credits. So if you see it, or wait for it to come on streaming or something like that, there are two post-credit scenes to take a look at. We're going to move into our next honorable mention, and we'll be right back with that. And the next honorable mention here is Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. This was, I believe, the second MCU movie to come out this year. I think it was like a total of 3. So it was Black Widow, Shang-Chi, and Spider-Man. I like this more than Black Widow. Black Widow was decent. I think Florence Pugh kind of really pushed it over the top for me to make it actually pretty enjoyable. I don't think I would have liked it as much without her character in there. David Harbour was also very good as well. Scarlett Johansson was fine, but I've kind of I've seen her play that character for however many films. Anyhow, I liked Shang-Chi much more. It had some of the best kind of hand-to-hand combat in the MCU. I want to say since the Winter Soldier. I think some of the fights in Winter Soldier are still, like the elevator fight and the fight between Captain America and Bucky on the street, are some of my favorite fights in the MCU. However, several fights in this movie, including the bus fight, are just incredibly well done and are just awesome. Some of the fights later in the film are also very, very good. And this movie does tie into other movies in the MCU, most notably Iron Man 3. I'm not going to give a whole lot away for Iron Man 3, but it ties into that film for something that could have been like a throwaway thing, that they kind of actually connected it. So Shang-Chi, really good Marvel movie. I, again, wasn't really familiar with the character at all going into it. I think a lot of these newer MCU films, I'm not particularly super versed with all these characters and the comics that they're from and so on. And especially the Eternals, I like this much more. I guess there was 4 MCU movies this year, so I guess I kind of forgot the Eternals because I thought the Eternals was all right, but it's probably at the bottom of my MCU list for this year. I think my favorites were my least favorite to favorite would probably be the Eternals being in 4th, then Black Widow, then Shang-Chi, and then Spider-Man. That might be giving away something from my top 5 because Spider-Man is actually in that. But Shang-Chi, very good. I would highly recommend it to anybody that's if you like martial arts movies. Again, it feels very much like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. I think I saw one review joking that it was Crouching Tiger, Hidden Marvel. Very astute or apt review for that. So Shang-Chi is good. Again, post-credit scenes, check them out. I believe it is on Disney Plus now if you want to watch it there. So that's going to do it for our honorable mentions. We're going to start moving into our top 5. We'll be right back with that. And coming in at number 5 is In the Heights. I believe this was one of Lin-Manuel Miranda's earlier stage shows. It may have been his first. I'm not really sure. Um, but saw this in the theater, and I haven't seen the stage play or anything like that. But I really liked In the Heights. The music was very good. Like the direction from, I believe, John M. Chu, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, directed Crazy Rich Asians, was very good. And I ended up buying the soundtrack on CD just because I really liked the music that much. Watched it in theaters, and it was also available on HBO Max, so I watched it a second time there. And again, I think the thing that really made me enjoy this movie was just kind of the setting of it being set in New York City. I really like New York City, so that's a theme. But then also the music was just outstanding. So really good story about kind of like families from Puerto Rico, the struggles that they go through, or maybe not just Puerto Rico, but just immigrant families in general in New York. I don't remember exactly when the film was set because it does basically take place in the present, and then also much of the movie is basically a flashback to the past because the main character is kind of explaining like a story to his children. So there's that. But very good. Like the music again was excellent. I picked up the CD off of Amazon and really enjoyed it. In the Heights. That's my number five. My number five movie from 2021. We're gonna move into our number four movie. We'll be right back with that. And number four for me is The Last Duel, directed by Ridley Scott, starring Matt Damon, Adam Driver, Jodie Comer, and Ben Affleck. Um, it's an interesting film as it came out. It barely made any money at the box office from what I remember. I think it cost like 80 million to make it, and that when I had seen it, I saw it kind of like I think I want to say late in October, or maybe middle of October. And at that point, it was pretty much on its way out of theaters, and I think it had made like $20 million or something like that. So it didn't make a whole lot of money. Um, Basically, the story is that Matt Damon's character is like Matt Damon and Adam Driver are both knights. Matt Damon is married to or going to be married to a Jodie Comer character, and she accuses Adam Driver's character of basically like sexual assault. So um, that happens. The interesting thing with this movie, though, is that it takes place from three different perspectives from three different characters. So the first part is Matt Damon's perspective and the events that transpire and that happen and unfold. The second chapter is pretty much the same events from Adam Driver's perspective, and the third chapter is the same events from Jodie Comer's perspective. Jodie Comer, by the way, probably I think like the movie that she was in right before this was Free Guy. Free Guy was fun, and it was kind of like a silly role for her to play. Not super serious, but still she did pretty good in that. But in this movie, it's a very serious role, and she does an amazing job with her character. The acting across the board was actually very good as well, and Ben Affleck's in there as kind of like a comedy relief as well. But basically, it's like those three chapters, and then these actual end of the film is the duel between Matt Damon and Adam Driver. I would highly recommend seeing it. It's a very good movie. I don't know what the style of storytelling is called, where it's the same events from three different perspectives. There's a name for it. I've heard it before. I just don't know what it's called, or I kind of forget what it's called. But would recommend checking out The Last Duel. That's my number four movie from 2021. We're going to move into our number three. We'll be right back with that. And coming in at number three is Pig, starring Nicolas Cage. One of Nicolas Cage's best performances lately, or maybe even ever. It's a very, very solid performance from him. And I think like when the movie was coming out, I think a lot of the kind of like buzz about it was kind of misleading. Like they were like, oh, it's about a movie about a guy who gets his pig stolen, and it's like a John Wick style revenge movie. And some of that does happen. So it's something that basically the pig gets stolen, and he goes out looking for whoever stole it. That's kind of where the comparisons to John Wick kind of end. But it's a great performance from Nicolas Cage. Like he's going to discuss a little bit of spoilers for this film. So he lives in basically in a cabin, like a house in the woods, has a pig, and he's a truffle farmer. So he's basically like living kind of just like there's like no like electricity where he lives. It's kind of very much like almost like a mountain man style way of living. He's going out farming the truffles and then selling them to somebody. And one day the pig gets stolen, and he goes on a quest to kind of find where this pig is, like try to track it down. And then it becomes like this whole kind of commentary on like just food and like food culture, if you want to explain, if you want to call it that. It's kind of hard to explain. You have to see the movie to fully understand what I'm talking about. But his character is a former like gourmet chef, and his wife had passed away some years earlier, and then he had moved and then it started doing the truffle farming, and it kind of like this pig is like the only kind of like thing, or like maybe even I guess I would call the guy he does business with maybe a friend or an acquaintance, but this pig is like his family pretty much. So it gets kidnapped and it gets taken, and he's got to figure out what happened to it. But like his performance is so good. It's very hard to explain, but I would just recommend checking it out. It's one of his best performances in the years. I'm really also looking forward to the next movie he's coming out with, which is like The Unbearable Weight of Success or something like that. I don't know the exact name, but he's playing himself. Pedro Pascal and um, Neil Patrick Harris are in that. I've seen the trailer for it a couple times. It looks very funny. I'm definitely going to check that out. I think that comes out in the spring. But Pig came out again like in the summer. I hope Nicolas Cage gets nominated for this. I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't because it came out so long ago as far as like releases go. Came out in the summer, and like usually the Academy, like if a movie has been out for a certain amount of time, the Academy kind of forgets about it. Like it kind of isn't really talked about all that much after release. So I won't be surprised if he doesn't get nominated, but he definitely should be nominated. So Pig is my number 3. We're gonna be moving to my number 2. We'll be right back with that. And coming in at number 2 for me is Licorice Pizza by Paul Thomas Anderson, starring Alana Haim and Cooper Hoffman. I believe it's both of their first movies. Alana Haim's been in the entertainment industry for a while with her band. I'm not very familiar with her band, but I know she's in one. And Haim is the band, by the way. And Cooper Hoffman is the son of Philip Seymour Hoffman. And both of them do an excellent job. It's kind of their first time in a movie, on a film. The film also stars Bradley Cooper, Sean Penn, and I think like Tom Waits is in there as well. But I really enjoyed this movie. It's the soundtrack is excellent. I'm probably going to pick up the soundtrack probably on vinyl. It takes place in L.A. or in that area in like the early 1970s. I think it's like 1973. And Cooper Hoffman's character is like a young actor, and he's like basically been in some movies up to that point, maybe some like stage shows, and then it's basically about him, and he's trying to start a relationship with the Alana Haim character, and a lot of the thing is that there's like a 10-year age gap between them. He's 15, she's 25. There's a bunch of other stuff going on as well, but it's kind of there's not really like a whole like a plot, and I really don't mind movies like that. That's one reason I really enjoyed Once Upon a Time in Hollywood as much as I did. Was it was basically just a slice of life story about like Brad Pitt, Leonardo DiCaprio, and Margot Robbie kind of just going around doing their thing. This film, I really just liked the setting. It was in 1973 Los Angeles, but it doesn't really knock you over the head with L.A. being the setting, because didn't recognize any locations from L.A. in the film. Like I think it was like purposely done to be set in L.A. but not do the kind of stereotypical like pan down shot, or pan down of like Beverly Hills with the palm trees and all that. Or like there's no major that I could tell, no major like LA locations that were just like like kind of in your face. It wasn't like that. And also it was like a movie that was supposed to be nostalgic to like the time period and the location, but also it was kind of also showing how that time period wasn't amazing. One major plot point of the movie is the entire the gas crisis and gas shortage of that time period. Like the one location that I think I recognize, I don't know if it is the Bull Creek Spillway, but it definitely looked like it. There's a scene where there's a bunch of cars that are just stopped on the street, and they're walking around the street. And it looks like it's the same street, maybe that that is used in Terminator 2, where the Schwarzenegger jumps the motorcycle into the drainage canal to save John Connor from the T-1000. That's like the only location that looked somewhat familiar to me. I don't know if that's was actually in the movie or not. But again, the acting was very good. I believe from what I read, they filmed it on 35mm film, or just filmed it on film with old antique, I guess not really antique, but lenses of the time period to make it look like it was actually like to give it a more 1970s look. So I've seen it twice. And my next movie I've also seen twice as well. But really like Licorice Pizza. I don't know where I rank it with the other Paul Thomas Anderson films. I think some of those other ones at least have like they have more of a plot, so I might like them a little bit more. But this one, but I also don't mind the slice of life style film where it's just the characters interacting and doing stuff together, and the plot is secondary to the characters. But my number two is Licorice Pizza. We're gonna move into our number one, and we'll be right back with that. And we're back with our number one, and it is Spider-Man: No Way Home. This is definitely the most fun I've had in the theater for a new release, probably since either Avengers Endgame or The Rise of Skywalker. I'm probably going to say Avengers Endgame because I think Rise of Skywalker was fun on opening night. The movie overall isn't that great, I don't think. So I think I like this definitely a lot more than that. So probably like the most fun I've had in a theater, probably since Avengers Endgame. Saw it in a packed theater opening night, and a very very good movie. Don't know where I rank it with when I do my MCU rankings, but it's probably easily top 10, probably top 5 at this point. Seen it twice. They definitely feel like this feels like it was like a 20-year anniversary of the Spider-Man films. It's not quite 20 years. It'll be 20 years in May from May of 2002 with the first Spider-Man film, or at least modern age Spider-Man film, I should say. But it felt like a celebration of the entire series because, as you see in the trailers, a lot of the villains from the original films come back. Doctor Octopus comes back. The Green Goblin comes back. Electro comes back. The Lizard from the Amazing Spider-Man is there as well. So a lot of the villains from the original runs of films are there, as well as probably one of the coolest things was Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire make appearances as their versions of Peter Parker, and they're not just throwaway kind of cameos where they just pop up. They're a crucial part of the third act of the film, and it's kind of weird because I remember seeing all three Maguire films. The first two were awesome. The second one is probably like very easily in the top Spider-Man films ever made. Spider-Man 2 is amazing. Spider-Man 3 was not so great. I still remember enjoying it, but it was definitely not as good as those other two. The Amazing Spider-Man, the first one I thought was interesting. The Andrew Garfield one, the second one not so much. But seeing these actors again play these characters, it looks like to me, at least Andrew Garfield, he's a very good Spider-Man, a decent Peter Parker. I think there's people that are saying basically online that, Tobey Maguire is a great Peter Parker and an all-right Spider-Man, and Andrew Garfield's an all-right Spider-Man and a not-so-great Peter Parker, and Tom Holland's kind of like the best of both, and I kind of agree with that. But that being said, I think Andrew Garfield in this film, is a better Peter Parker than he was in his films. So I think it just shows that, like you give Andrew Garfield a good script, you have a good director, you can. I think he just suffered from having a not so great script and a not so great director working on those films. They were fun, they were whatever, but they weren't great. I wouldn't mind watching them again. There's definitely I would definitely watch them again because they are still entertaining. Even Spider-Man 3 has some charm to it with some of the stuff that happens there. But basically, all these villains show back up. Basically, and then so basically it becomes all three Spider-Man versus all these villains, and it just felt like a great celebration of the entire Spider-Man series. So it was a lot of fun. 2 post-credit scenes, so stick around for both of those. I don't remember what it was. Yeah, it was that one, and then it was one other scene after. I'm not going to give away what the other scenes were, but yeah, Spider-Man: No Way Home, a lot of fun. Probably don't know if it's the best of the new Spider-Man trilogy, but I think it was the most entertaining, just because again it felt like a huge celebration when they're bringing in all these classic villains and all these other 2 Spider-Man actors to reprise their roles as Spider-Man. And I think I remember reading somewhere that Sony was actually trying to get Andrew Garfield to do some other Spider-Man stuff, because now there's this whole multiverse they can explore where you have the MCU, you have Tom Holland in the MCU doing his thing. You could still have, in a different universe, if you even want to spin it off like that, have Andrew Garfield doing something on his own. And I think people want to see whatever the Amazing Spider-Man 3 was going to be. I think people still want to see that. But going back to Andrew Garfield for just a moment, I remember the reason that at least that first Amazing Spider-Man movie only exists really was to prevent Marvel from getting the rights to Spider-Man back, or having to go back to Disney. So they really didn't have to put in a whole lot of effort with at least the first Amazing Spider-Man movie. I think they put in more effort with that one than they did with Amazing Spider-Man 2. But both those movies were kind of just done to basically just hold onto the Spider-Man license and not lose it. So I think if if Andrew Garfield is interested in doing more of these movies, it would be really he's a really good Spider-Man. You just have to have him have a good script, and I think No Way Home delivered on that front. Tobey Maguire was also there. It was just really like fun seeing him back in the role as well. Like I said, almost 20 years since the first Tobey Maguire film. But Spider-Man: No Way Home, my number one movie of 2021. It might not be like the best like put together or best edited, best shot or whatever, or even best acted, but it was the movie that I had the most fun with. Like saw it in like I said, packed theaters on opening night and then a few nights later. So that's my top 5. That's gonna do it for this video. Remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. We'll see you again next time. Thanks again for watching and take care.